Hey everybody, I'm Unica Walcott. Thank you for tuning into Career Conversations. It is Saturday, and so the moment we've all been waiting for is here. I'm going to spend some time this morning with Marissa Gallo. She's a communications manager and also a very close friend. So, Marissa, we're not going to waste time. We're going to jump right in. When you tell your family that you're a communications manager, what do they think you do?
Um, they're not sure. I have to explain to them because, a lot of people think of communications as telecommunications. Or, if I say marketing, they think of, um, sales representatives and things like that. So I have to explain. Actually, it's, internal and external communications for a firm, and getting the word out. It's, part education, part public relations, just all mixed into one. And communications is just the umbrella term. Luckily, I haven't had to explain this to my 5-year-old son yet, because he wouldn't understand the
Oh
whole
yeah, no,
thing.
I couldn't imagine trying to explain it to the little guy.
No.
I'm gonna interrupt you just for a second
Yeah.
though. Can you pull your camera back just a little bit? I think we're chopping your head just a little bit, and I want to make sure people
Okay.
can see that beautiful face.
How's that?
Yeah, up a little bit more.
Up a little more?
Yeah, because there we go. Now we've got you. Okay, so yeah, but I'm like, if you had to explain your job to a 5-year-old, what would you tell them?
I would say mommy helps companies be their best selves.
Ha, that's cool. I like that actually. That's a really good explanation. Help companies, show up as their best selves.
Yeah.
So, a non-5-year-old explaining version, what do you actually do?
As a communications manager, I focus on internal and external communications. So, internally, my job is to educate and inform our employees about what's going on and our capabilities. And then externally is just get the word out about our firm, our capabilities, and our employees, and show why we're a firm you want to work with and work for.
Oh, cool, cool. So, are there any internal or external communications you're especially proud of that you've created?
I am. So with my previous firm, I did a lot of work on internal branding, which was a lot of fun just because you get to kind of be creative and use your problem solving skills and kind of come up with something new. It's like taking feedback and listening to people, being like, I think our firm is this, I think our firm is that, and just kind of like, okay, taking all these thoughts and just boiling it down to like one cohesive thought that just encompasses everything. So that was really fun.
That
Um,
sounds tough when you've got to like aggregate all these like ideas. It's like,
it
okay, we were
is.
thinking hot pink and we were like, we weren't even on colors. Like we were thinking words
Right.
and you got to try and make that all make sense. It sounds like a pretty
It
demanding job.
is. It is. It's kind of like a puzzle where you just have to like take each piece, see where it all fits together, and make one pretty picture. And so you're like, and then when you look back, you're like, oh yeah, that makes complete sense. But to get all those pieces, it comes from feedback from everybody. It comes from those visual elements. It comes from feelings, which can be very difficult for someone to express sometimes. How does a company make you feel? And it's like, I don't, the company doesn't make me feel anything. But when you like stop and think about it, it's like, oh, okay. When I immediately think of like Starbucks, Disney, McDonald's, you have an internal reaction, whether you're aware of it or not. And you just kind of have to focus on that and really hone in on
Oh, that's a really good point. Like you said, how does the company make you feel? I
yeah,
don't think anybody ever stops to think about that, but that's a lot of what you end up kind of selling when you're recruiting your new people and
absolutely.
helping them figure out what the culture is like and will it be a good fit or a good environment for them. That's
Yeah.
really cool. How do you draw out feelings from people? Like people, I mean, are they open to sharing with you? How does that work?
Yeah. No, that's an excellent question. And I think um part of it comes from being just a genuinely empathic person and wanting to know that. I've been told my whole life that, I'm a good listener. I'm not good at sharing exactly, but I'm a good listener, and I'm good at getting in tune with what people are really trying to say. So again, if you just kind of sit back and actually listen to somebody, you can kind of pull out of you. And human instinct is like, they can feel that energy, and if they feel like, oh, this person's actually interested, they want to know, that person is going to be more open to sharing. um, and then another part of it is knowing what questions to ask. One of my favorite jobs ever was working at a Yankee Candle in the mall.
A
um,
Yankee Candle.
a
Okay, we got to talk
Yankee
about this.
Candle. I loved it so much. And one of my favorite things was when someone would come in and say, I need to buy a gift for somebody. I don't know. I know they love candles. I don't know what kind of scents they like. So I would always ask them, like, what kind of foods do they like? Um, what does their house look like? And between that, you can kind of figure out, what kind of categories they fall in. Do they like sweet? Do they like earthy? Do they like floral? Do they like musky scents? So that really does translate into emotions, feelings. It's just, finding those little categories, um, and finding what's right for them. And I had several people come back and tell me later, they're like, "Oh, you just happened to pick my wife's or my friend's favorite scent, and I had no idea." And I was like,
Wow.
"I know." I love that
That's
job.
a
It's
gift when
fun.
you're able to kind of go, look, tell me about their space. How do they surround themselves? How do they move through life? And that's how you're able to like really figure out what is appealing to these people.
Yeah, and it's the same with communications. Like, okay, even if you look at their office, or if you kind of really focus in on what language they use, what
Mhm.
key phrases they use, or even their hand motions while they talk, you can kind of figure out what that person is like. It's all psychology, really.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. It's definitely a part of kind of understanding what's going on up here in
Yeah.
people's hearts. So how did you get into this particular role?
Um, I kind of fell into it. I actually joked with one of our former coworkers. She was saying, like, how did we get into this world? How, like, it's so we all of us work in industries where we're not the primary occupation.
Right.
Um, and it's like, how do we get into this world? We're so opposite of most of our employees. And I answered, we needed a job because print media is failing.
I'm sorry.
Which is true.
Well, I mean, that's I'm sure part of the equation. I've never talked to anyone who's landed in this in an intentional fashion usually.
Yeah, it's all really happenstance. And I'm getting text messages from my former boss. Hi Bill, I'm actually live. This isn't recorded.
Hi, Bill.
Hey.
Yeah.
Um,
So,
So, how I wound up into this was I was an English major, with concentration in writing, and I loved poetry. I became a poetry editor and managing editor at Towson University's literary magazine, Grub Street. Hollow Grove Street. And after college, I needed a job, and I applied to be an editorial assistant at our local county newspaper. And it just so happened one of the editors there also went to Towson and worked at Grove Street. Um, so it just, was the right fit, and I connected with people there. Excuse me. Um, One of the editors there. Excuse me. See, this is live.
yeah. Also, can you slide back again for me too? I think we've got you like chopped right at the top of your glasses.
Sorry about that. Um, One of the editors there gave me my next opportunity at a um, daily paper, which
Hmm.
was great. I wound up back in my county paper, which led to editor of a magazine position. And after
Oh,
all jumping back and forth in various jobs in journalism, I realized I don't like journalism. um,
whoa.
it was, I mean, I loved writing, I loved meeting people, talking to them. But it was taking a huge emotional toll with all the fun profiles you get to do. You also have to write the horrible stuff.
Like what? Like
Um,
obituaries?
oh, yeah, I started writing obituaries at our county magazine, which actually I loved doing because it became more of a celebration of those people. And it was nice learning about people's lives. But, covering accidents of and stuff, and going to the courthouse, and hearing trials, and it emotionally wears you down. And I had to get out for my own mental health. So I
So,
was looking at jobs, and I was started looking at communications jobs because my dad suggested it, and I found out that a lot of my skill sets were the same as someone in communications. So good writing skills, good interviewing skills. I knew how to post on social media because of various jobs. I ran different social media pages. I knew how to do page layouts.
okay.
Just
And
all
so
of these random skills that I learned over the years. Just apparently that's what a communications person does. Um,
awesome. So you mentioned page layouts. What do
yeah.
you do? How does that work? What are you doing? Can you tell us more?
So if you want to make a marketing piece, a flyer, a brochure, an advertisement. A lot of these things you do in Adobe products. So InDesign, Photoshop, Illustrator. I don't know Illustrator, but Photoshop and InDesign I can do because I worked for newspapers and magazines with very small staff. I had to lay out my own pages. So I had to learn that on the job, and it translated well of, oh, okay, so like a tiny bit of graphic design experience, not a graphic designer. um but having, again, all these kind of random skills help you out, and kind of make you a well-rounded person who can
Yes,
do a lot
yes.
of stuff.
Yeah, I agree. Like you need not necessarily to be a graphic artist, but you've got to know enough to be dangerous to go like we don't put these
Yes,
colors together because that's terrible.
exactly,
it,
exactly.
it's
Or when
not
you
going to
tell the
print
graphic
well.
designer you want, being like, no, this doesn't work because of this,
Hmm.
things like that, knowing just yes, like you said, a little bit to make you dangerous.
Yes, and like you said, asking good questions. What are some of your favorite questions you've asked, or that you continue to use over and over as a communications person?
One of the things that um, you learn as a writer and you learn as a journalist is who's the audience, who are you trying to appeal to. So that's one of my main questions whenever somebody comes to me and says, I want to get in front of this client, or I want to write a blog about XYZ. And I'm like, but I don't know how to go about it because they're not writers. That's not their job. That's my job. So I say, okay, who are you trying to reach? Who's your audience? Is it internal? Are you trying to tell employees about something? Are you trying to get in front of a client about something? Who is the client? What do they care about? Or is it somebody completely different? If you know who you want to reach, you can tailor your writing, or a marketing piece into such that speaks to them specifically. So if you know who your audience is, that helps with half the work. um, and as well as, what are you trying to say? Tell me in one sentence, what are you trying to tell me?
Huh. Tell me what you're trying to tell me. I think that
Tell
that's
me what
good.
you show me, and then your job as a writer is to show using words or graphics. Show me,
No, that's a smart approach, but who is your audience is a really good first question to
Yes,
help get the ball rolling and figure out what does this need to look like. If this client is somebody who's actually going to read this, maybe we actually put it in writing. If they have 20 seconds, what does it look
exactly.
like visually?
And
That
that's something that can carry over to anything. If you're writing an email, a professional email, who is your audience? Who are you trying to reach? Like you said, if they only have 20 seconds, what are you going to write? If you know they need to know all of this information. So always think about that first.
Yeah. So we've talked about how you gotten into this role, what you actually do, and what your family thinks you do. And then, what did you want to be when you were growing up?
Um, at first, for a very long time, and if you know me, this will make complete sense. I wanted to be the female Stephen King. I wanted to be a horror novelist.
Wow.
Um, yeah, and again, if you know me, that makes perfect sense because I love Halloween. I love horror movies. I've written scary stories since I was like 7 or 8,
Oh,
which
wow.
is probably not a typical hobby. Um, and then when I got to high school, then I wanted to become a writer for Rolling Stone magazine.
Rolling
Um,
Stone's not bad.
I wanted to talk about music. I wanted to live music. I wanted that to be my focus and everything. And I could talk about music forever. So I thought, hey, I can make that into a job. I didn't, but
Yeah, I
but
think we all have these ideas like high school, college of like what we'll become, and then like life happens and you realize how much
life
things
happens.
aren't in your control and you have to kind of go with the flow. And
Yeah,
for me, I just remind
absolutely.
myself like life's not over. Like, I mean, we're living longer. We're gonna have easily 3 or 4 careers.
Yeah, and both me and you have had, several lifetimes and different roles.
Yes.
So, who knows what's going to happen in the next part of our lives? Maybe I will become a Rolling Stone journalist. I don't know. Will Rolling Stone be around that long?
Now
Because
that's a
print
great
media is
question.
dying.
Yeah, magazines are not surviving all that well. Like when I tell you, I was like heartbroken when they told me that it was going to be digital only. I like
Yes.
literally sat down and wrote an email, and I was like, I need you guys to publish a hard copy quarterly because my life will never be the same.
No, for sure. This is terrible.
So
It's
I got my wish. So maybe it's not over.
maybe not, but I really love doing communications. It's different every day, every week, and it's they're all people are always coming to you with some sort of challenge that you need to solve, and it's just it never gets boring. It really doesn't.
That's great. That it never gets boring.
Uh-huh.
Like that's a gift of a job.
100%. It
Uh,
truly is. I'm never bored with communications, and I'm very fortunate.
yeah, no. I've heard good things. What did you wish you knew before you embarked on this career path?
Oh, geez.
That pause.
Um, I wish someone would have told me you get more no's than yeses, and that's okay.
Mm,
It's okay if someone doesn't like what you wrote or made right off the bat. Communications is very collaborative. You're the one who is there to kind of like present a menu of options, and all you can do is give a recommendation, and if that's not what they want to do, then that's okay. It really is. Even if sometimes you're like, that's not the right way to do this. Please don't. But they do it anyway. That's okay. It's all
yeah, no,
it's all
that
good.
makes perfect sense. If you're trying to get people going along, I think sometimes people think communications is like you're the brain behind the operation, and really you're giving other people a voice and sharpen it
Exactly.
and making it so that it's polished and able to communicate the goal.
That's a good way to explain it. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
It's not
Um,
personal. It's not personal.
no, so
Never
you were
is.
saying, look, I wish I knew I was going to get this many no's. How did you learn how to cope with no?
Um, by having a really good boss that would remind me it's not personal.
Hmm.
You're gonna have another chance to do this. It's all good. And just having that reminder of you're good at what you're doing. You know what you're doing. that has nothing to do with that. You know, it has, everyone has different tastes and sensibilities, and you just have to learn that. And next time, cater to that, and maybe they'll say yes again. But just because they're saying no this time, it's just this time. So thanks,
That
Bill.
that's a oh yeah. No, that's really good advice. To realize, like, it's a moment, a snapshot in time. It's not permanent. There are other opportunities. I think in my friend circle we say that to things in life, and we say, "But did you die?" No. Okay, keep
Not yet.
going.
Not yet. Let's try
But did
again.
you die?
But
Okay,
did you
no.
die?
So what advice would you give someone interested in becoming a communications manager? Like, where should they start?
Um, get get and get good writing skills. Get good writing skills, not speaking skills.
I was like, wait, she just.
I'm not a speaker. Really figure out what your voice is. You need to figure out what your voice is before you can figure out anybody else's voice, and that's something you tend to lose your voice in journalism because you're writing very rigid news stories, and you're like, I need to do this introduction, I need to give the supporting paragraph, and here's the summary, and that's it. It's a formula, pretty much.
The inverted pyramid.
Exactly. Exactly. Unless you're doing a profile on somebody. And that's where you need to figure out what your voice is, because that's what makes each piece kind of special. It needs that little touch of magic in it. And you can't do that. You can't find somebody else's voice until you can find your own.
Yeah, and I will say, just in my own personal experience with you, you were gifted at helping people, like, because you have your own voice, to make sure that
Thank
you
you.
don't edit other people's voices. You've edited some things for me, and I was like, wow. And I say that as a high compliment, because I'm a huge judgy person sometimes about people's writing. I'm like, I'm not a stickler so much on the punctuation and spelling part. Is like, but
Right.
did this make sense?
Exactly. Did this make sense?
Like, or how
Does it
did it make me
represent you?
feel? Like, did I feel anything when I read this? I think those are the writers that have grabbed me the most over the years, that I can't put down, is how do I feel when I read this?
Yes. Yes.
And
That's a great point.
I think that sometimes is missing when we talk about the mechanics and the requirements, so to speak, of writing. Sometimes it's, how does it make you feel?
Exactly. You can get so caught up in, I have to include these buzzwords. I have to make sure everything like grammar, punctuation is perfect. And then there's no feeling in it.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, if you know what your voice is, you can kind of add that a little bit. And that's why I always loved reading what you wrote and editing any of your writing, because you have a very clear point of view. And anything you write is very you. And it's like I can hear your voice in my head when reading something you wrote. You can't mistake that for anybody else. And that's what will serve you well going forward. It's, oh, that's Unica, or that's Marissa. And you can just pick that up just by reading it.
Well, thanks. Well, thanks. We've talked a little bit about what you enjoy about the role. What is your favorite part of being a communications professional?
Probably that the problem solving aspects is like, give me a challenge. So, someone will say, I want to show this client that we can do this service. And I can be like, okay, let me sit down with you. Let me learn about what you do. Why do you want to reach this client? What makes us stand out? And kind of taking all those pieces together and being like, okay, here's your strategy. We have these, capabilities. We have these things that we can do. Let's put them all together and just like throw it up against the wall and see if it works. And
Yeah.
sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. And if it doesn't, you're like, okay, what can I learn and apply it to the next thing? So all that problem solving can be frustrating, but it can be, the most fun too.
Yeah. So, what has been the most rewarding problem you've solved?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, I don't know. I
Oh, I
don't
asked the.
know.
Well, that's
Uh,
okay. That means it hasn't happened yet. Like the thing that makes you go,
maybe not. That's a good thing. A lot of the times when there's a success, I don't attribute it to myself or my work. I'm like, you guys did this. This is your thing. I'm just the one that like made it like sparkly and shiny and I'm the behind the scenes person.
so you're like, okay, you're the president, I'm the VP, and you handle the things, and I'll handle this over here. Sort of, kind of the person.
Yeah.
This
You know what? Another thing that I wanted to be while I was growing up, and I have a point with this. I didn't want to be a famous singer. I wanted to be a background singer. And
really.
I know that, but it makes sense. I don't want to be in the spotlight. Get me out of here. I just want to make you look good. So, I mean, it makes complete sense now doing what I do. But I remember watching like Michael Jackson, like tour videos or whatever, because I loved Michael Jackson growing up.
Who didn't love
And
Michael
like,
Jackson growing up?
I know. And just seeing the background singers like compliment his voice. Again, I could talk about music forever, and especially like Sheryl Crow used to be a background singer for Michael Jackson. I was like, I want to be her with the curly hair and just sing a background. So I always think of like, oh, like they're the star. I'm just the background singer. So I don't know. Maybe I need to make myself the star a little bit too. Be like, I had a part in this.
I mean, and that's what I was gonna say. Like, I mean, could you imagine some of your favorite Michael Jackson songs without the background vocals? They're trash.
True.
Not to be
True.
mean or shade Michael Jackson, let me be clear, but just think about it that way when you are not willing to give yourself enough credit for your contributions to the process. It is not the same without you.
Oh, probably not. We'll see. I'll work on that. I'm gonna work on that.
Yes, yes. And so your contribution, it matters. We have had such a fun convo. We talked about how you would explain your job to a 5-year-old. Right. Like how do you even begin? Is there anything else that you haven't, gotten a chance to share that you'd like to share?
um, yeah, it's even if you think your job isn't creative or if you're not a good writer or anything, you are creative and you have a voice and you have something to say, and just make it known. Just kind of put yourself out there, because if you don't put yourself out there and put your voice out there, then you're not going to get anything back. You're always just kind of be in the shadows, and feel like you're not heard. So I don't know. Write something. Be heard.
Be heard, write something. I like that. I think that it is scary to put yourself out there. What gave you the courage to take a leap in that direction and put yourself out there?
One, I love you, and I would do anything for you. I'm
Oh, thanks.
I wouldn't do this normally. I'm the background singer, remember? And but I love you and I support you, and
Yeah.
I
You
trust
you've
you.
been Thank you. Thank you so very much for that. Like you have been like, man, a life-changing like person in like a real way. I can't even like begin to express that like in a real way. Meeting you changed my worldview about the kinds of friendships that I can have.
Same. And this is not going to become a crying session because we've
It is
already.
not because it's over. We'll cry privately.
Yes.
But yeah, no, the relationship with you changed my life in a lot of ways about what I could expect in a friend. So thank you for being my background singer today. Is
You
that
got it.
appropriate?
Always. Always.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Everybody, thank you so much for watching Career Conversations with Unica. Hi, Bill says two friends talking. Yeah, I know this is dangerous. Like, why they let us get together, Bill? uh, um, so yeah, it has been an absolute pleasure. I look forward to continuing this Career Conversation series. Thank you so much for helping me kick it off and being my second interview.
Yeah. Thanks, honey.
Later, friends. Marissa, if
Bye.
you'll hold for me.